Hi guys! In today's video, we'll be finishing up the koi fish mermaid we started a few weeks back. After all the color challenges I've been doing lately, it's really been nice to get back to unlimited materials, not gonna lie. If you haven't seen my previous video where I made the koi fish mermaid tail, I'll leave a link in the description box and also at the end of the video, because this is really the first step. And this was the first tail where I individually placed the glitters in the scale pattern, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. For the base of this project, we'll be using this secondhand Monster High Cleo doll, and I decided to chop off her hair because I didn't want black hair for this. I wanted her hair to match the spots of the tail, so I started by removing that completely, and then I removed the face with acetone. Something I often notice with Monster High dolls is that once you remove the original face, you can see that the actual eyes are drawn way bigger than the shape of the actual eye mold, which I think is kind of interesting. Once the face is all clean, we can prime it with Mr. Super Clear. I do 3 thin layers, and then we can start the repaint. For that I use my watercolor pencils, which are a mix of the Faber-Castell Archbeidur and also Kandach. And then I use some chalk pastel, I used a bit of acrylic paint, and finally also a bit of shimmery mica powder. For the face of the doll, I was going for a semi-realistic and yet very natural look. I wanted the eyes to be slightly hooded, so I looked up some reference pictures of some different faces to get a feel of that, and then I just attempted to do the best I could with the face sculpt essentially, because the face sculpt was not, it doesn't look very Asian, which was what I was going for since this is a koi fish, but the face sculpt is very sharp. It has a very angular nose bridge and stuff like that. So I tried to use shading to soften that and, bring out the features that I wanted to see. So sometimes you're very limited by the face mold, and you could do some, reshaping and filing away. But I also find it very hard to get a smooth look when you do stuff like that. So I really just worked with the shape the best I could. When I want a more natural look or a slightly more realistic approach, something that's not too cartoony, I tend to rely on my colored pencils a lot, because you can build up the colors, but it's just much softer than using acrylic paint, which is just saturated and very sharp from the beginning. So I use my pencils for the majority of this repaint actually, and I build it up in layers, and this is where the sealer, Mr. Super Clear, is very important, because once you seal it, it sets in what you've done, but also give the doll more grip, so you can work on top, and that's where you build the colors. And also, as I mentioned, do 3 thin coats of Mr. Super Clear before I start the repaint, and I just find that this gives the doll a very good grip, and also get a good color payoff from the start, for instance with the white pencil, because white is a hard color to build up otherwise, so yeah. Whenever I want some very soft shadows or highlights, I will use my chalk pastels. And during this repaint I did quite a few layers of mainly highlighting, because I did like the tone of the doll's skin. I just wanted to bring out some features more and use almost the original color more as the contour color pretty much. So I used a lot of white on the forehead, on the cheekbones, the chin, Cupid's bow, nose, stuff like that, to try to bring out the features a little bit. And then I focused even more white on the most, outstanding points, so nose bridge and middle of the cheek and the chin. And it looks very harsh once I do it on camera, but next time I seal it, it really saturates the pastel and it kind of, sinks into the doll's face. So you'll see me repeating the process a lot during the process here. And that's both with the pencils and also the chalk pastel, that whenever I need to build something up, you'll see me do it multiple times, sealing in between, just because otherwise I can't build it up softly enough. It would just be too harsh. So since I was going for a natural look, I stuck primarily to brown tones and a bit of black, so I could build up layers like that. And for the lips, I went for pretty muted color too. If you're in doubt or having trouble on where to highlight or shade the face, then I do really recommend looking at reference pictures, even if you're not looking at one to make your doll look like this person that you're looking at. It really just helps you get an understanding of where, the shadows go and where things should be lighter. And that's pretty much the same for any type of art where you want to depict something. So if you want to sculpt something, it helps to look at a reference because you get an idea of shape. And if you wanted to draw something, you learn something about shadows from looking for reference too. So I really recommend that, and I do that a lot. And when I look at reference, you would not be able to tell that the doll I made was made from the reference if you saw it, because they never look alike, and that's never the actual point for me. I just take it as inspiration in the sense that I learned something from it. Something I struggle with when I try to do shading more realistically is, doing shading, for instance, around the nose and in these lines that kind of lead down to the edge of your mouth, because I feel they often get too, overpowering when I do them, and it just makes the character look a little either offended or maybe a little too mature. And if it's really bad, then it looks like they have a 5 o'clock shadow, and that's just really, really bad. So I try to do it very softly, but still indicate, that those lines are actually on the face, because it just adds a bit of realism. But I actually find those things pretty hard. Something I really missed while doing these color challenges was to have black to shade the eyes. And I use black pastel to shade the actual both iris and the eye whites, just because I feel it just adds so much dimension and make them look a little mysterious. I don't know, I really like it. And whenever I do a doll that's wearing any type of colored makeup, I will most often also add a bit of black in the outer corner to darken it. But for this one I actually didn't. I kept it brown again for the natural look, but I will very often do that. As much as I like the look of the pencils and building them up slowly to, the opacity that you can get, there is just something that's just hard to do with the pencils. I feel, for instance, having a very dark eyeliner and, very dark pupil, because I feel it's just still a bit muted even when you use the black pencil. So therefore I'll either use the watercolor effect of the pencil, or in this case I used a bit of watered down acrylic paint, so black for the pupil and also the eyeliner, and then I used a bit of watered down white to do the highlights of the eyes. Once I was happy with the face, I sealed it in a final time and put it away to dry. Now I can prepare the hair. I use 100% acrylic yarn, which I can brush out and then straighten with my hot iron, so it looks nice and smooth. And I chose this cutter because I felt it would match the tail very nicely, and I prefer to glue the hair onto the doll's head rather than rerouting it. And this is a matter of personal preference. Some people like rerouting. I think it's really boring, and therefore I like to glue it because it's quicker and I can arrange the hair the way I want it. Once the hair was all done, I made a very simple pattern for a kimono inspired blouse, and I made the blouse from this thin veil fabric and a bit of ribbon, and I simply just cut out the piece of veil and sewed the sides, and then I added the ribbon on for trim. I did consider making a proper kimono for her, but I decided I wanted something light and airy looking instead. For embellishments, I made some tiny cherry blossoms, and I did this using some tissue paper and markers, which I colored on the tissue paper, and then this little flower-shaped hole punch. Then I glued the flowers in place along with some loose petals, and then I took some micro beads in gold and glued these to the center. Finally, I glued on some eyelashes and glazed the eyes and lips, and then she's done. And here she is all together. I really like how she turned out, but then again, you guys know that I have a thing for mermaids, so... If you guys have any ideas or requests for future videos and stuff you'd like to see, be sure to leave them in the comments below, because I love to hear from you guys. Be sure to hit the like button if you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in a new video real soon. Bye!